Hello and welcome to Dave Makes Stuff. In our last video we got this TT moving, at last, but it was running crazily rich and wouldn't idle for anything. So this time we're going to plumb in the turbo and see if that makes the engine happy enough for Julia to try it out. We've mounted the intercooler previously, but it hasn't been connected up so far, so that's today's job. A visit to the scrapyard turned up a couple of metres of unused stainless steel tube for about £2. It's about the right size, and it's definitely the right price. The first step is to form a retaining lip in the end of the tube so boost pressure can't just blow the hoses off. This rusty thing is a modified pair of mole grips that does exactly that. When you squeeze the grips it creates a little bump in the skin of the tube. Enough overlapping little bumps equals a continuous lip. It's not a quick process, but fortunately this tube is quite soft, presumably so it can be bent, which makes the job a lot easier. Professionals use bead rollers that quickly form a nice smooth ring, but this works just as well in practice and takes up less space in the junk shop. Garage. And there we go. Fun fact, do enough of these and you end up with hands that can crush Brazil nuts on their own. It must be true, the guy who told you sounded really confident. Clearly we can't fit the intercooler while the bumper's on, so I'll wave an adjustable spanner at it really fast. Remarkably, I remembered to unplug the wiring for the lights first. And now we can spend an improbably long time watching me bolt an intercooler on. I'm using Allen-headed bolts because I've got a mixed metric and inch set, which means I can always rely on having the wrong one and really frustrating myself. I did have a list of jobs I needed to do to get organised, but I've lost it. Right, we need to get from here, where I don't have enough Jubilee clips, to here, where I don't have any. And then I need to get some Jubilee clips. By way of standing half a chance of ending up in the right place, I'm going to measure the angle between the edge of the headlight and the tube, and then we can mitre the tube to suit. 67 degrees. Great. And the car has a very fine moustache. Just not curly enough yet, so we'll mark it up somewhere here. And then I'm going to mark the tube using a template that I can print out, cut out and wrap around the tube to get a mitre at whatever angle I need. These are really useful. By using the template twice, moving it 180 degrees round the pipe for the second time, I can mark out a sort of pizza slice that I can then cut out. I'm not going to cut all the way through the pipe because keeping it in one piece obviously makes it much easier to handle and to keep aligned. The weird thing about this template is that although it's curvy on the flat sheet, it actually makes a straight cut when you wrap it around the pipe. And yes, my maths teacher would be giving me a look that said, and why is that surprising? Or possibly a look that said, was it you that put food colouring in the drinking water? But I digress. Where were we? Folding pipe. Yes, that was right. And it's turned out not too bad for freehand cuts with an angle grinder, but I'm just going to trim a little more to get it closer. The exact angle doesn't matter too much as we're doing one bend at a time, and hence we can just adjust the next one to suit. Once I've finished cutting it, we can offer it back up to the car and mark out for the next bend. Again, this is not an exact science. As long as we keep it clear of the bumper and go in vaguely the right direction, we'll be alright. Time to take it back to the garage and break the angle grinder out again. Having multiple gentle bends like this is better for airflow than having a few sharp corners, as the sharper the corner, the more severe the pressure losses. If this were a performance build, we'd be better having it bent from a single smooth piece of tube, which avoids the weld beads disrupting the flow. But this isn't a performance build, so we don't really need to care. Now that we've got the first couple of bends in, I'm going to tack the weld them together so that their positions are stable when I'm measuring for the rest of it. There's a right and a wrong way to do this, so I'm standing outside in the rain, holding the tube in its bent shape using my boot and hoping the weld lands in the right place, and statistically, sometimes it does. Yay. Okay, that's not looking too bad. For the next bend we need to start angling up to meet the engine inlet hose, so we'll rotate the position of the cut a little. I've printed off a new pattern here for 45-degree angles, as we need a tighter bend to get the end in the right place. I could have stayed with 30-degree bends, but I'd have needed a lot of them, and the end result would have been more weld than tube. In case anyone's wondering, no, that's not a dubious attempt at a VW logo on the tube, I just changed my mind about where the cut was supposed to go. So again, same drill as usual. Chop it, fold it, tack weld it in place. Call me paranoid, but I think a quick check to make sure the bumper still fits would be a good idea at this point. It does, which is a relief. So now it's time for a close-up of my knee, and or the other end of the pipe being fitted. This is where it gets a bit trickier, as while the first few bends can be positioned by eye, clearly there's got to be some accuracy in there somewhere if everything is to join up in the middle. I didn't get good footage of the last join going in on the first pipe, so here's a shot from the other side of the car instead, just to show the last tack welds going in. And no, that's not very pretty, but we'll sort it out later. Anyway, back to the first tube, which now looks like this. Just before we fully weld it together, it seems prudent to make one last fit check. So if you'll excuse camera work that wouldn't pass muster in a low budget indie horror, yes, it fits, and therefore we can start welding. As usual, I'm using overlapping spot welds as it makes it easy to control penetration and ensure a strong weld. I've majored on ensuring the welds are airtight and fully penetrated. Pretty is not so important, as I'm simply going to grind them flat and rely on the penetration and the underbead for integrity. As I said earlier, there's a balance between number of bends and how steep they are, because I don't want to be 103 before I've finished welding these things. The angle grinder is the right tool for smoothing the beads. I'm using a very coarse 40 grit flat disc as it's good for material removal but still leaves a smooth surface. It does take a while to get everything flush, but hey, it's 2020, there are bigger problems in the world, and it's not like I was doing anything with my life anyway. Anyway, here they are looking shiny. That's probably a temporary state of affairs if we don't protect the welds though, so they're getting some paint. No point in painting the ends. Away from the welds they won't rust, and the hoses would take the paint off anyway, so I'm masking off first. I would use masking tape, but that would require me to have some, and to know where it is. For those of you watching in black and white, I'm going to be using some very ordinary black gloss spray paint. I did wonder about painting the insides of the pipe, but decided against it. I'd rather the engine wasn't ingesting paint flakes, and given that we're downstream of the turbo, it's fairly probable that there will be a coating of dust and grease that will likely do more to prevent the welds rusting. I did wire brush them to remove any debris though, for obvious reasons. I'll be honest, I was quite surprised at how sleek they looked when they came out. But there's no time for that, they need fitting, not staring at and talking about. Followed by the symbolic tightening of still not enough Jubilee clips. And then we can wander about in the dark, staring at pipes. Your guess is as good as mine, but look, we've got a pipe on one side, not enough Jubilee clips, and a intercooler in the middle, in case you'd forgotten. And it's daylight again. Oh yes, front bumper. We do need that. It does fit, honest. I checked a minute ago. Look at those hands. And when I say it fits, I did have a definite moment of, hang on, have I really stuffed up here? Everything does clear like it should, but it really is tight in there. And as you can see here, there's not much room. Although, you might also note that the Jubilee clip varies have been, which means, I think, that we've got a fully plumbed-in turbo system, and we can actually try it. As you might expect, this process started out with some minor hiccups.
More revs. But that's alright. Stay up.
And had some definite funny moments.
Brilliant. There we go. Do it again. Yeah. So clutch up. That's not the clutch. So
I'm glad I didn't have the clutch up then.
Yep.
And eventually we got to here, which is by no means a bad place to be on your first day. And a good place to leave it, I think. Hope you've enjoyed watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.